I will not publish any more NeverEmployed podcast episodes anymore. But I found it super important to make this video and to tell you my reason why I'm gonna stop. Because I've listened to so many podcasts which just ended up in nothing and just stopped without any further notice. And I was like, why? This was cool. Please continue. In fact, I'm super conflicted about this thing of stopping or not stopping the podcast. But yeah, there's simply quite some reasons that have higher priority and are just more important for me, which doesn't mean that I will never publish any videos or podcasts or interviews or anything anymore, but just not at the moment. Because one thing is that I either want to do it or I don't want to do it. I don't want to do such an in-between thing of, yeah, maybe I publish an episode or not, or, either I want to have a system that works and a project on which I focus and on which I work like every day on a habit-like basis, or I don't want to think about it at all. Because otherwise it's just something that obviously, because I don't want to focus on it 100%, is not so important. And if it's not so important, why would I do it at all? NeverEmployed for me is way more than just a podcast. It's way more than just interviewing successful entrepreneurs or investors. NeverEmployed is a way of thinking that I developed for myself last year. It's the result of a quite long thought process. Yeah, it's basically the idea of not getting a salary job and focusing on building my own business instead. At this point, when I thought about it, when I came up with this idea, I thought, hey, this is actually my identity. This is what I've always been. I've never wanted to get a salary job. I simply never wanted to have a certain profession. I never thought in terms of, yeah, I want to do this or that job. I've always rather thought in a way of, hey, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to help people. This is what I want to create. This is, my thing that I feel is worth working on. The point is, every time I record an episode with an entrepreneur within this NeverEmployed show, I feel like I promote this idea of not getting a job. And in the past, I thought that this is a cool thing, but in fact, it is not necessarily. It is definitely not if you're just not getting a job because you don't want to work or you're freaking lazy or whatever. It just makes sense for people who already have a working business. Back then, when I thought about this concept of not getting a job, I thought about it in a way of, if I don't get a job and don't waste time working for someone else or even applying for jobs to get a reasonable job, I can spend way more time working on my own business, working on my own freelance career or whatever, working on my personal brand, on something that has way more long-term value for me personally and hopefully for others too. But the point is, as long as you don't have a working business, this puts pressure on you. And I think either you work like crazy because pressure is what helps you to focus or so, or you simply don't care about anything but money and business. But that's definitely not the case for me, and I think that's a huge part of my learning process through the past 6 to 12 months. I simply don't work well under pressure. Another thing I learned about myself is that I can prioritize theoretically, but practice is not theory. So what you think and what you know what is important to get to a certain point is something else than actually putting in the reps and executing on the right things every single day. Yeah, to be honest, I just realized that at least in the past, I haven't been very good at executing on the right things continuously. But I believe that there's huge power in habits in any part of life, be it business, be it relationships, be it health. And eventually, you simply don't build a business by talking about business. So the point for me is that I just got super obsessed about this whole podcast thing and eventually put way more time into it than I should have done, probably. Because in the beginning, the idea of doing this NeverEmployed podcast was actually just a thing of, I just do this on the side while I primarily focus on my own business. But what actually ended up happening is that I spent a shit ton of time on social media to figure out the very best strategy, to find guests, to observe other people, and eventually I just caught in the freaking social media loop. I believe that social media is a huge thing to share knowledge, to share progress, to share ideas, to promote something, to do marketing in any way. But it can also be a huge distraction. This is what it was for me to a large extent. So I've simply not been able to publish on social media and create for social media without consuming a lot. This means that I could record, edit, and publish episodes in a fairly short amount of time, but this then doesn't really feel right. I mean, I could automate my outreach to guests to save time there, to prevent myself from getting caught in social media consumption. In fact, I simply spent way too little time with people in real life over the past 2 to 3 years. I mean, I met a lot of great people online. I've interviewed super interesting, super successful, and super impressive people, but there are great people out there, and it's simply a huge difference between talking with someone online and really getting in touch with someone in real life, face to face. Yeah, that's part of what I will do. I mean, I'm still super interested in what kind of businesses people build. Of course, that was a huge reason for me to start this podcast. I actually just try to find people who build cool businesses intuitively, and every time I meet someone who has a cool business or works on some kind of business, whatever kind of business, I'm simply super interested. I just love to learn about people's businesses and their stories and how they got there and what they think is important to build a business. In fact, there are quite limited lessons, to be honest. It's still super interesting to hear the particular stories of the different people and what they did in detail and how their life looked before and how they got into entrepreneurship and what kind of challenges they faced on their journey. But if we're just simply talking about the practice of building a business from a technical point of view, the lessons that you can learn are super limited. One big thing of building a successful business is just putting a lot of effort into it. Like, just work hard and work focused and keep doing it for a long period of time. The cool thing about the people with whom I talked on the podcast is that I choose all of them on purpose. I've been the one who reached out to almost all of them because I really wanted to have these people on my podcast. I wanted to talk with them. I wanted to ask them questions. I wanted to learn from them. I wanted to know their perspectives on life. And I wanted to share this to, just share this with you, with other people, with anyone who wants to hear it, anyone who'd like to learn from successful entrepreneurs. And I'm super grateful that I have this opportunity, that all these people took the time to come on the pod to talk with me about their business, about their life, about their stories, and that they took time to share their lessons learned with me and with you. And I still feel that there's huge value in that. If you have the idea of building your own business, I still recommend to follow all these people if you feel that they add value to whatever you are doing. If you want to invest in real estate, if you want to build some kind of online business, be it as a programmer, as an indie hacker, as a digital marketer in some way, they're great people